Welcome to NinonSpeaks. I'm your host, Ninon de Rosa, and my co-host is AJ Dean. Sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome to NinonSpeaks. I'm Ninon de Rosa, and my co-host is AJ Dean. We have an incredible show coming up. I don't do any of the introductions. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, for being with us, for supporting us, and enjoying our shows, because we're doing quite well with this. Obviously, this is one of those Zoom things, which is actually turned out quite well, because we kind of did it not thinking of what was going on in the world, actually. So we sort of hit it lucky, I think. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to AJ. AJ, would you like to introduce our guest for us?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, beautiful Ninon de Rosa. It is my great pleasure to introduce the dazzling and wonderful beauties tonight. The dazzling international burlesque star Vixen DeVille with us tonight. She's a dancer, instructor, fire eater, aerial hoop artist, magician, and she does private and group classes starting from $18. I've reserved my spot. And she's also the author of Vixens Unleashed for $20. You can get that on her website. She's got a special show coming up on Saturday, April 17th. We want to talk about that. It's a James Bond theme. She's performed at the Ritz. I want to talk about that. And Café de Paris. And then we also have Laurie Walliner, also known as Lamore, the gorgeous burlesque performer who has been performing for the last 2 years. She resides in Southern California and also in New York. And she has a favorite book called Burlesque or Bust. I got my copy here. She wants to talk about that a little bit. And she's going to share an amazing story with us. Welcome, ladies. You're absolutely gorgeous. Hello.
Laurie, how are you? Burlesque Bust. What a name for a book. Where did you get that name from? I think we just lost her. I don't know where she went, but that's okay. Okay, Vixen DeVille.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am so good. Thank you so much for bringing me on the show. This was fantastic. I've been seeing a couple of your episodes, and then AJ called and said I'd been recommended. So I'm like, oh, someone recommended me. I must be doing something right.
But you look absolutely beautiful. And I always ask, the first kind of question is, what made you go into burlesque? What made you go into this? It's an extravaganza, but it's nothing like it used to be. I think it's more refined now. I think it's very beautiful.
So yeah, I had wanted to be a performer, like an actor, since I was like tiny size, like 7, 8, 9 years old. And I was like, I want to be an actor, gonna be an actor. Went to an after school acting training type thing. And I tried dance and some other types of performance, but I hated dance school. Could never follow the choreography. I was one of the larger ones. I could never remember what I was doing. I just was comparing myself to all the other performers and thinking, oh, I'm not, I don't belong here, kind of thing. And I then ended up training as an actor in London. And after I graduated, I saw a breakdown for what was called a burlesque show. And I'd never heard this term before. And it said like sexy clothing, it said dancing, and it really intrigued me because I loved Rocky Horror, and I loved kind of sort of all this kind of like sexy corsets and Moulin Rouge, and I liked this idea of it, but I never really knew what it was. And when I saw the word stripping, I thought, oh, I can't do that, no way, because I didn't like my body. I didn't like seeing myself in the mirror. Like, who else would want to see that on stage, So I didn't apply. But a friend of mine, I was in a play with her later on, and she's like, oh, I'm in this show called The Blue Review. And and I was like, oh, that's the thing that I didn't apply for. So I went and saw it, and I realized it wasn't like this seedy it wasn't sort of sex in your face, it was confidence. It was just a celebration, like you said, extravaganza. And it wasn't necessarily all focused on the group routines and getting it right and everything's specifically on point. It was solo performances and solo acts. And I loved that this was a place where I could then express myself, move, create, storytell, without relying, as an actor, you sort of rely on a writer and a director and someone hiring you and then directing you around. And as a
one second. Yeah. So in other words, you were able to do exactly what you wanted to do, which is what you didn't want to do in dancing. So now you could actually be you, Vixen.
Yeah, you're you on stage, you're creating your story, it's your solo act. It's absolutely, you're in control of the performance.
So how did you get that? You said you didn't go to that job, and then you realized, when they talked about this job, this Blue, what was it called? Blue?
It was, at the time it was called Blue Review. It then ended up being called the Kitten Club, which I believe still goes today.
So you didn't go into that, but what you did, and then you saw it, you thought, oh, I missed out, because this is really what I want to do.
Yeah. So I watched the show and I was like, this is where I need to be. And I got extremely drunk. And at the end of the show, I was like, you need to put me in your show. I want to audition for this. This is what I want to do. And she was like, well, absolutely. Like, come to next month's auditions. And I just think it's so great because like, when I teach classes, people are like, oh, I wish I could have like a drink before class. And I'm like, yeah, but burlesque is about you just being, because drink releases the filter. And now I've got the confidence where I can be the drunk version of me who knows what they really want in life. And the filter doesn't stop you from asking for it. So I was like, I need to go to the audition.
Years ago was that?
That was 2000. I performed 2005. So this might have been 2004. Or it might have been 2000, yeah, but 15 years ago, yeah.
This was in London?
Yeah, yeah.
And what were you doing at that particular time? You weren't doing burlesque or anything like that.
No, I was at the time in a Commedia dell'arte play, and in that show was the girl who had auditioned for this burlesque show. So we were in this, Italian comedy, almost Shakespearean play together. And she was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this burlesque show. And I was like, oh, great. That's where I went from.
Imagine Shakespeare and burlesque as one thing.
I mean, there's a show out in here in LA. It's Shakespearesque, and I do a Shylock act where the whole story is, in Shylock, it's if you prick us, do we not bleed? Like we're all the same underneath. So the strip is saying, yes, I've got my clothes on, which identify my religion, my character, my identity. But once I take my clothes off, we're all just the same. We're all just humans. Like, and so that I love that act because it has such a huge message behind it.
Have a body that's covered in skin and it's there, and we all look the same. Some have got bigger boobs, some have got smaller ones, some have got big behinds, some have got little ones, and it's all different. And then there's difference between the men and the women, so you've got a difference there. But basically everybody in the entire world is the same, and people and I don't know why we have these problems with anything, because we're all the same. And it seems the only thing that everybody seems to be worried about is the color of your skin. And we don't choose that. We're born and we have to deal with what we have. Wherever we may be. But you got dealt a pretty good pack of cards here.
Well, I didn't think of it at the time. Growing up, I thought I'm ugly, I'm out of shape, I was never one of the popular kids. I did not like who I was. Or at least I didn't like the person I was showing to the world. I didn't like the mask I was putting on to live in society. And I was too scared to show the real version of me because I had been told that it wasn't acceptable and it wasn't right and it was something to be bullied for and something to be shameful for. But burlesque helped me to realize that when I show that on stage, it's celebrated. It's who you are is absolutely amazing and valid in the world.
It's celebrated who you are. Now, when you confronted your family, and I don't know if you were married at the time, but I'm sure you have a mother and father somewhere, when you confronted them and told them what you were doing, what was the expression on their faces?
Oh, so my mom absolutely loved it. She taught costume design in schools growing up. So growing up, at 5 years old, I was like, I love mermaids, make me a mermaid's tail. And I want to be Ursula sea witch, let's stuff pantyhose with pillow casing and hook them on his little tentacles. So she loved the costuming of it. And we walked down Hollywood Boulevard when I moved here and all the stripper shops, she's like, oh, look at the shoes. Oh, look at these costumes. I'm like, Mom, can we just, come on. So she absolutely loved it. And she just loves that I have this amazing freedom on stage and have found something that I excel at and that I have fun doing. And my whole life, she said, find something you love doing and go and do that. Because if you love it, you'll do more of it. And the more you do of it, you'll become an expert at it and someone will pay you to do it. So that's been her Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, AJ, I know you've got a couple of questions up your sleeve that you would like to ask Vixen, so go right ahead.
Yes, I just want to say thank you, Vixen DeVille. It's such a great honor to have you. And what was it like working at the Ritz Carlton? Can you tell us about that?
Oh my God. So I was working for, oh my God, I was working for this like members club that were hiring performers, and I was glass walking and fire eating for them. And they had this booking. I don't even remember what it was. It was some prince of some foreign land country. I don't know where. Somewhere. Some prince was having this party to woo his potential wife. Absolutely not a lie. And they'd hired me and a magician and a juggler, and I think a contortionist. There was like 4 of us at this, and they'd had this private room in the Ritz, like down underneath the hotel. And it was like this private party. And we were all given these rules, like, this party is for this woman, but we don't want to perform for the woman because we don't want to make it that obvious that this is why we're having this party. Like, how could you not make it obvious? Like, that's why we're having the party. So we had to like acknowledge her, but not directly perform for her. And it was just I'd never felt like such a court jester in my whole life. It was just like, I'm literally, I don't know, it just felt so like, call in the next performer. And we walked into this room and it's just filled with all these people lying around eating grapes and like clinking glasses. And
any of that, were you?
What's that?
You weren't used to any of that. You were used to doing your own thing and performing to everybody and everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're hired for a private event, corporate event, you're so much more performing for them. Like you're to spec, like you're being hired to spec. When you're performing in a generic show, it's you're in our world, you're coming to our show, we set the scene, we set the location, and we present to you our show. But when you're hired for a private event, it's their event. So it's a whole different world. People, when they get into this world, want the high paid gigs and all that kind of stuff, but it's such a different animal. Like performing for you and performing for the client is such a different world.
How many people were at this was it engagement, wedding, whatever?
No, it was just like a social event to sort of, like, he wasn't going to propose to her at the event, but it was just for her to like consider him as her husband. It was a room in the round, and I was doing a magic illusion that really needed to have end-on angles. So I was like, this is not going to go well because I've got people behind me who can see kind of how it works. Gosh, I would say it was packed full, but it was a smallish room, so maybe like 60 people or something.
Because normally gatherings have a lot of people because they bring their uncles this and that. And,
oh goodness.
Laurie's back.
Oh, sorry. It never fails here. He's like, I did a Vixen's 15th year show. We did it in the backyard and it didn't fail me then. What's going on here?
Nothing's going to fail you because you're right back again and we're not fine. I think, Vixen, we're going to give Laurie a little time here.
Really? Over to you, Laurie.
All of you. So nice to meet you.
I want to find out about this book, Burlesque Bust. AJ was talking about this book this morning, and she said, Ninon, she said, you've got to read this book. And she said it was absolutely fascinating. So
it is one of my favorite, I would say top favorite books that are aligned with, burlesque and the story of the burlesque performer. She's from the United Kingdom, like yourself. And I just sort of, the way I've met a lot of people in the burlesque world is just through happenstance and also then creating relationships. So Sapphira, her story impressed me so much that I found a way to connect with her through another burlesque performer that I've also been working with and doing some burlesque with, Lacey. Her name is Lacey Knickers, and we became friends, and we stay in touch and send each other voice clips and talk on the phone. Her story is remarkable. It's just remarkable from childhood going forward. So yeah, the book is not mine, but a lot of her stories.
Are you in the burlesque arena? Do you do any burlesque, or are you just Karen?
Oh no, I am in the arena. I have jumped in. I jumped in because of Vixen. She the same little startup that AJ will be having, the Permission to Play course. I just literally dipped my toes in the year 2019 in Los Angeles, but going backwards, I always had this sort of fantasy of being a showgirl, and I always loved burlesque, and I always loved, the whole showgirl style, but I was kind of put into a category of being a plain and simple girl in terms of my family, in terms of my friends, and somewhat awkward. And it was kind of rough, really rough in that particular way, because then it feels like just a fantasy and it could never happen.
But you made it happen though. Like this.
Yes, I did, and I am very pleased. And honest engine. If it weren't for Vixen, my friend Kat Lacoe and Vixen DeVille, because we've become very, very good friends. I would not have gotten the courage and to go this next step. So I'm very pleased and happy, and I've been working on, on keeping it up. I haven't done so much this year because of this year. I've been doing a lot of watching and a lot of thinking, but I have things coming up. And
you're going to change your whole course of how you're going to do burlesque, and maybe you're going to get a little bit more daredeviling and get a little bit more out there.
Oh yes.
Now, especially Vixen, because she's in her element. She loves the stage. She loves doing what she does. And I think once you get into that, when you get past that barrier, and we all have a barrier of what we feel we can't do and shouldn't do, or should we do it, or how do we do it? And I think you've probably reached that barrier and jumped over it, and sort of you're going to continue doing it in the way you want to do it now. Is that how you feel?
Yes, absolutely. I've been watching so much of it, and I have performed, and I have another performance coming up. And when I was on the show with actually with Lacey Nickers, who is in Portland, Oregon, I did my first pasty reveal, which I from the start with Vixen, I'm like, I'll do everything else. I'll be in the cutest bras. I actually had pasties pinned to like a mesh bra. I've done all kinds of things like that. And I'm like, one day, and I have 3 grown sons, and I'm thinking to myself, like, how they want to see everything I do. Like, how am I doing this with 3 sons? So and they're all grown, and all 3 of them have said, Mom, very, very recently, when I was talking about this next act, they're like, what do you think? This is about us? This is about you. And this is the whole idea. And they said, just go for it. And my family, like my sister, who was a little shy about it, just loved seeing me dance, but wasn't thinking about the final potential of taking more things off. I do a really good job of taking things off without taking as much off as I see other people. Now I've got a performance on June 6th where I will be doing a full
6. That's my mother's birthday, number 1. So we'll do it for her. She's up in heaven. I presume she's up in heaven. Pretty good woman. So, but I think what's happened, I think that your 3 sons have actually given you approval. And I think that's kind of released a few little anxieties within yourself of what are they going to think of me, and can I do it, and do I really, all this. I think it's given you a big relief. Going over to AJ, I know AJ has a question for you, and I think it's a little something about your past life. AJ?
Yes. Did you want to share something? You've overcome so much, Laura Lamore, and did you want to share something, part of your story of overcoming?
Sure. Gosh, there were so many different bits and pieces. I think I can start with the fact that I grew up in a very tumultuous household. My dad was bipolar. My mom struggled it was my sister and I are 18 months apart. So I sort of struggled to be a mom when she was having so much difficulty with my dad. So kind of my sister and I stepped in and were kind of managing the whole family at very, very young age.
Wow.
And so in many ways, having, you know, a father who was acting out and angry, we were very alienated from the rest of the community. We lived in the housing projects in the Bronx. It wasn't very typical. We happened to be Jewish. Wasn't very typical of Jewish folks to be living in you know, kind of a more you know, put it like this, in an area that wasn't like, you know, where our aspirations were to do something else.
So
What was that?
A less expensive upbringing.
Exactly. So we had all of that and feeling, a lot of it feeling left out and very awkward. And there was something recently where some picture came up on Facebook of one people that I'm friends with now, because we've all reconnected as adults. And it was somebody's bat mitzvah and bar mitzvah. And they were saying like, yeah, we were all there. And I got that stabbing feeling of I was the only one who wasn't there.
Oh.
And you know, it's still it's you know, it comes back
Yeah,
to me, but it doesn't come back to me all the time. Most of the time I am more sparkly and happy. I have a, you know, a great family. I have grandchildren who are somewhere in the midst right now. But also I was, another big part of my story was that I was a victim of a serial rapist when I was 17. And I think this might have been where AJ was going. And I have told Vixen all about this in because we did some very close work together. And the story behind that was, it was challenging to get through these several hours of being, you know,
raped.
Yeah, being raped, being at knife point, being on a roof. And but I felt like I took myself out of the situation, like really said, I'm going to get through this. And once I got through it, I had a great deal of support, not from my immediate family. My dad really couldn't handle it, just got super angry and ranting. My mother was just like, gosh, we got to put you in a shower and clean you up. And I started instructing her on what she really should do. Call the police, don't shower me. They need evidence. I have no idea where this all came from. But the next thing I did was to work, you know, because I had great support from the man who is now my husband for 44 years. He was just right by my side. And I after a week of kind of putting myself away, and I got up and said, you know what, I want to help other young women. I'm going to get by this. And I really felt like you know, that strength. So there was that powerful person in there. And I have since then assumed lots of leadership skills. I work with autistic children. I opened my own program. So I've done a lot of good things, but you know, this was a moment in time that I guess between being, you know, feeling one way and then using it going forward to gain further strength and to remain the person that I was, but also to have tremendous growth and not feel.
Actually, what you did, you turned something absolutely horrifying and you kind of turned it around and you made something good about it. Vixen, when you hear a story like this, we hear it and we obviously hope it never happens to us. I had a near time back actually, an apartment in Beverly Hills that I nearly got raped, but I managed to run out of the door, but I had all my clothes torn off, but I escaped. But Vixen, when you hear things like this, what do you think of why men do this? Or, you know, this is your friend. And it's sort of, you know, what makes them, I mean, to suddenly do this to a woman?
I mean, I have no idea. Power, fear of women's power. I mean, I've never been raped. I've been attacked by my boyfriend. Oh, I mean, we'd broken up, but it was like a day later. And I remember him saying, like, I was on the ground, he'd thrown me over. I remember him saying, look at you now. And I think it's because he felt like I had ambition. I was planning to move to LA. I had like my goals all set out. And I think he was having a very, very terrible time of it. He was having a lot of bad things happen to him one after another within the space of 2 or 3 weeks. And I think he just didn't know how to deal with this. I feel insecure and I feel like I can't, like a jealousy, but also an inferiority feeling. And I think the boys are, boys are told from the beginning of their like life, you know, you have to be a man and you can't show weakness and you can't cry and you can't do this. So of course it's going to come out in anger and in like, I need to assert my authority and show my power. So I don't know if it's that. I cannot say about Laurie's experience, but I think where they're not allowed to express themselves, show weakness, and it comes out as in violence and anger instead.
I think you're very right about that. I mean, it's a lot of anger and feeling that they can't be vulnerable at all. And thank goodness raised 3 boys to men, and they all know that it's okay. It's okay.
Feel that the man that did this to you, or boy, or whatever, this, I don't even want to call him a human being, but we will. Do you think he did this out of anger of you being a woman and him being a man, and kind of he was trying to show his power, or did he just want to have sex with you?
No, I don't think it had anything to do with sex. There were 21 of us. I was number 15. They were at that point, I mean, he was just, I mean, this was one person who just was after women, and his MO was exactly the same for all of these women. And it started off as a robbery in an elevator, and then up to the roof, all in different housing projects until they got him, and he was put away for 12 years. I got to see this man. I got to, face him, and did
he apologize?
He did not apologize. I will tell you this is an interesting factoid, is that he kept a journal, which is very typical of serial rapists. Mm-hmm. And I read the part that was about me. And I know during this particular time that I actually did not know. I didn't know what was going on. I really thought that it was just a robbery. And from a 17-year-old perspective, I'm thinking like, are you hungry? Are you lonely? You're a good looking guy. And on the roof, I had just come from the bakery, and I sat down, offered him some baked goods and said, let's talk. And, we can get through this. Okay. Which is sort of the social worker part of me. And then, all of this happened. And I said, you know what? He's just we've got to just find this guy and get him away from doing this. And it did seem very controlling. I mean, I can remember it like it happened yesterday, but the good news is that I was able to move on, have a family, have a really good career, and continue my life. And I did get to let him know about that as well.
It sounds like you have a wonderful husband, an amazing husband that took care of you and loves you the world. Now, either one of you, AJ, you take over. We're going to go on a different side of it, though. Let's talk about what's coming up with the both of you. You go, AJ.
Yes, Vixen DeVille has some upcoming events. In fact, it's a James Bond themed event coming up this weekend, I believe. Is that right, Vixen DeVille?
This Saturday, yeah. I'll be hosting from my little studio here, and there'll be a couple of pre-recorded acts. It's a whole variety of burlesque and fire and aerial, and it's a whole variety cabaret.
Is there any cost to this? Do people have to pay to see it, or is it?
It's donations. So you go to tdd.eventbrite.com. TDD is the Dollface Dames, and it's a donations only show. So it's whatever you can afford to throw in our direction.
On this, but this is going to be strictly on the internet, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And do they go to Zoom, and where would they?
Yeah, it takes you to Zoom. It's a live stream. It's at 7 p.m. Pacific. And then if you miss the actual live show, you can then get a download link afterwards and just get it in replay and watch it in your own time. Okay.
For all the audience out there, 7 o'clock Pacific is actually this California time. If you get confused, New York is 3 hours later and such and such. Now, what about you, Laurie? Have you got anything coming up?
Well, coming up, it's really interesting. Well, coming up, I have the show that's on June 6th with Fanny Sinclair. She's another wonderful performer, does a lot of shows. She's now become a little bit of a mentor of different kind of styles. So when I think of where I came from, it's Vixen DeVille. And then I moved on, learned about so many different people. But June 6th, I'll be doing a brand new act that I have wanted to do for a whole year. planned it one completely one way, different, and it's coming out all different. So that's great. And then my friend Georgette Dante, who's now one of my very best friends, we are in communication all the time. So she has some ideas about her little film and her film company that she wants to include me in. So that's very cool. And I will perform with Lacey Knickers again. She does a monthly show where there's a peer review. And like I said, that's where I did the first pasty reveal, and I have another show that I'm planning to do to yet get another critique, but also get a chance to perform again. So those are just some things, but I have some other things kind of rolling around, and hoping to with Vixen again very soon.
Yeah, what I think about you, Laurie, it's amazing. I know that you're not old, but you're certainly not 25 because you've got
64, May 4th, 64 years old.
So you are 64 years old and you are going out there doing burlesque. I have to admire that. I think it's amazing. Both of you are amazing. You're both so energetic about continuing with burlesque, but not being afraid of it and just doing what both of you want to do and how you want to do it. I think is wonderful. I can't wait for this pasty thing you're going to do, Laurie.
I'll bet Vixen can't wait. But Vixen, tell us more about you. I mean, this not just a mentor. She's like everybody's mentor, and she has her own groups. She doesn't charge for these groups. She has like on, once a month a Funkbuster call. Tell them all about you. You're amazing.
Vixen, I want to know where people can reach you, what you do, and how you do it. So we don't have much time left.
Okay.
You can check out my website, vixendeville.com. You can sign up for an intro class, or you can sign up for the full act development course. And then, yes, I do a group where you can come and celebrate how amazing you are, even if you don't want to grace the burlesque stage. So you go to facebook.com/groups, reveal the amazing you, and you can come play and jam out with me in that little Facebook group there.
And you are a prize example for, embracing yourself, because, it's funny in life, but we always look at the bad things we do. And, why did I do this? We never look at the good things or praise the good things. So I think the message you're giving across, Vixen, is to so good about yourself. You're going to do something, go and do it before, you hit the right in heaven somewhere. I don't know. Wherever you're going. Laurie, what have you got coming up? Something this weekend? What have you got going on? Laurie.
Oh, this weekend?
No, do you have anything going on?
Not this weekend. This weekend I'll be watching Vixen.
I'll be coming to my show.
I'll be going to Vixen's show, and then I have to laugh because I'm like typing in. I'm like, the calendar's always ringing. Wait, there's another one. Whoops, there's another one. I've become, I think, and Vixen said this at her own 15th anniversary show, is that this Laura Lamore and Laurie have become part of the burlesque community, even though I'm not performing so much. I have so many. I tell my family back in New York, I'm like, I have so many friends in LA. Like, you haven't seen them at all. I'm like, yeah, but they're there every single day in many ways.
Then you just got to put on Zoom, and then you become attached.
Zoom.
How can anybody reach you, Laurie?
Let's see. They can. Instagram, I'm at Lamore 54, and on Facebook I come up as Laurie Walliner because I had all these parents from my past because I was a teacher on there. So I do put some of my burlesque stuff, but I'm Laurie Walliner. And then I'm Laura Lamore 54 at gmail.com if you want to email me.
Okay, fabulous. AJ, some words from you before we close out.
Yes, I'm so looking forward to Vixen DeVille's class coming up next Friday, I believe. And I wanted to ask, would you ladies perform for the Queen or royalty if you were asked?
Always, of course. I want to be the royal variety performance. That's like the dream.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I look forward to any and all performances that I can find and do, and I'm in a much better frame of mind because of some of this COVID stuff being behind and some other things being behind me. I can't wait, and I'm just excited. I'm so excited that you invited me on, and I was so thrilled to know that Vixen was going to be here with me.
That's fabulous. I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in, for watching the show. Two fabulous women, Vixen and Laurie, have given a prize example of what women can do out there, and absolutely. There's anything you can do, anything, especially in this day and age. This day and age, things are a little bit more open, and I think women are now stretching it a little bit, not feeling self-conscious about what they do, what they think, and how they are as women. I mean, we're not men, and men are not women. You know, we do our thing, and they do their thing, and there's nothing wrong in women reaching out and doing their thing and being out there. And I just want to thank everybody for